thank you for giving us a space at this meeting to just briefly talk about the Tsunami Ready program for Barbados and where we're at right now with some activities that we're implementing in the West Coast, and it affects the St. James North, the DEO. So we're very happy to be able to come out to this meeting today and talk a bit about this. In keeping with the theme of preparedness and the minister's remarks just now, we advocate a CDM approach, a comprehensive disaster management approach with a department for addressing disaster management in the country. And that approach requires us to look at all the hazards that affect the community, not just the ones that might be most visible or most prevalent. It requires us to ensure that everyone within a society is involved at all levels of society. And it also requires us to ensure that we're looking at all phases of the disaster cycle, including preparedness. One of the areas in which we have been working to strengthen our preparedness in Barbados is in the case of the tsunami hazard. One of the programs we've been implementing in this regard is called the Tsunami Ready program. What the Tsunami Ready program does is it outlines for us, for communities in areas that are vulnerable to being impacted by a tsunami. It outlines a series of criteria that we can implement, and if we can meet all these criteria, we can achieve a recognition called Tsunami Ready. It would basically say that the community has taken a number of steps to prepare themselves for the potential impact of a tsunami. Now, under a project that's currently being implemented by UNESCO and the Caribbean Tsunami Information Center and being funded by the European Union's DPECO program, we are participating in a program that will assist communities in the participating states in actually achieving that Tsunami Ready recognition. It has a very long project title, if you can see it from there. It's called Strengthening Capacities of Early Warning and Response for Tsunamis and Other Coastal Hazards in the Caribbean. But it is primarily really focused on about 2 or 3 main components. One component is going to look at the planning at the regional and the national level. So we're going to be looking at the protocols we actually have in place for receiving a warning that there is an impending tsunami, and then the protocols that we put into place in order to warn the public and then to respond. But the area that is probably more probably maybe close or more relevant directly to you at the community level is the second component, which is looking really at seeing if we could achieve that Tsunami Ready recognition and putting in place a number of activities and so on at the community level in order to help the community be more prepared. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Now, a lot of these criteria are surrounded around how we can prepare for and mitigate against the impact of tsunami, and then also how we respond. So the things that this program has been looking at primarily for the community level, it has been looking at developing a protocol and a community operational plan for the tsunami hazard for each of the communities that are involved in the program. In this case, we are looking at the DEOs, the district emergency organizations that are within the section of the coastline that we're working with. St. James North is therefore one of those communities. So one of the activities is to develop an emergency operations plan for the St. James North DEO that will look specifically at how the DEO will respond to a warning of a tsunami. But very important for the entire section is the work that we're doing to model the inundation that would come from the impact of a tsunami wave and prepare some maps based on that work that's being done. And then also to prepare evacuation maps for the community that will then, based on the work that we've done to determine what areas might be flooded by the tsunami wave, to identify what are some of the best routes that you can take to get out of the community very quickly. And it's the maps that I'm most concerned about today, because currently the phase that we are in is that we have developed the draft maps, and we're now looking to get feedback from the communities on these maps. This work was done, as I said, it's funded by UNESCO and DPECO. So what they have gone ahead and done is secured some support for for Barbados and the other pilot countries to engage consultants with the expertise to actually do that very technical work of determining what the inundation is going to be like, and then identifying what are some of the best routes to take out of the community. So they've completed that work. We have the draft maps, and we have been doing some work now to get feedback from the community on those draft maps and what they think, what you think of them. I don't know if any of you passed through Spikestown at any point in time, but for the last couple of weeks, we've had them on display in two places, Spikestown and Jordan's. For persons who are passing through that area to just take a look at the maps. And we're primarily concerned with getting the feedback from the residents on the maps. Any ideas or any thoughts that you have on them. There are some other activities that are involved in the project. A large part of it is once we've completed the maps, we're going to erect signage in the community that will show you not only the evacuation maps, but we'll also have signs to direct you along the routes, the evacuation routes. And we'll also have signs that will indicate to you when you're entering and leaving the tsunami hazard zone. The also important that doing the community drill. That will be done in March, later down in the year, around the time of the Caribbean exercise, which is an exercise that we use to test our tsunami protocols every year. But for the purposes of this meeting, I am primarily more concerned with just demonstrating for you very quickly what the maps are, what the maps look like. Can I have the next slide? We may have to go forward a little bit. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I think in all my talking, I did not give you the actual boundaries of the area. It's from Sherman, St. Lucie, and St. Lucie all the way down to Mullins. Could I have the next slide, please? There we go. So this is the project area. So you can see it takes in a section of the coastline that is within the St. James North constituency. And the northern boundary is in Sherman's, and we come all the way down to Mullins. Resources being a bit limited, we had to select a section of the coastline. Unfortunately, we could not do the entire west coast, which would have been nice. But we will build on the work we're doing now to go on to the other parts of the community when the resources are available. Can I have the next slide, please? Next slide. Next slide. Yes, I won't spend time. Next slide. I'm looking for the maps. There we go. Okay. So this is the first half of the map. This is the draft evacuation map. I think it's from Sherman's. No, this may be the entire map here from baseline things. So it's from Sherman's in St. Lucie to Mullins and St. Peter. And it's a bit small right there, but I have printed copies that I will mount that we can look at after the meeting. The map, the yellow areas will show you the areas that are considered to be the hazard areas, and the red lines on the map are the evacuation routes. Could I have the next slide, please? Right, okay. So this is a closer in section that's a bit closer, more of a close-up. You may be able to see the red lines a little bit more clearly. What you will notice is quite interesting about these maps is that, and we thought it was an interesting result of the work that was done by the consultants, but the inundation on this section of the West Coast does not go as far inland as perhaps maybe you have seen in some other places. These maps, however, do not necessarily tell you how deep the water depths or how high the tide would rise if you're impacted by a tsunami. Like I said, the yellow areas are the areas that might be inundated, so the inundation does go far inland, but there are some areas that could see some significant impact. Like we said, what they've explained to us is that it is a feature of Barbados's geography, the topography of the seafloor outside of Barbados that somehow has an impact on reduces the impact of the wave as it's coming onto the West Coast. So in case people have some questions about why it seems that the area is a bit small, that is the reason. It's a feature, apparently, of our topography offshore. Next slide, please. And right, so this is the section that, and I think St. James North is more to the south of this area. We're seeing a bit more inundation in some of the areas around Mullins and so on. So compared to some of the areas that we had further north. The good news about this it just means that in order for us to reach a level that height that is safe, where you may not be impacted by the safe, you may not have to move as far inland as maybe in some other places or other parts of Barbados that may be a bit lower lying or a bit flatter. Okay. So that's the maps in a nutshell. There are some activities that we have coming up that I would like to note, but what I really would like to do is encourage everyone to take a look at the maps and to use one of the different mechanisms we have for feedback, to give us some feedback on the maps. You can talk to me after this meeting and I can take your comments. You can contact us at the department. You can give us a call. Our contact information will be included on the display that I have there. Or there's also a way that if you like living on your phone, your phones, that you can send your comments or your ideas online using your phone. I'll take a couple of questions. I think there was one.
What is the way of activity or the heights that was used to model the inundation? Because
based on the results of the modeling, we were seeing depths in some places almost 2 meters.
I'm talking about the tsunami itself.
The wave. Well, okay. The work that was done would not look so much at the height of the wave. It looks more at how far inland it's going to the water is likely to impact. Yeah, so it's distance inland, and then it also looks at how high the water levels may rise. So what we're looking at, we've seen in some places, according to the modeling, as much as 2 meters in some places, which is taller than, as you can understand, which is well above the heights of most people standing straight upright. Yeah, but also you have to bear in mind too that the actual impact of a tsunami wave varies. Sometimes it looks like a big wave coming at you. Sometimes it's just the water levels rise very quickly, but very high. It has a lot to do with the physical characteristics of the earthquake and the area around you. Yeah.
Because sometimes I just want to know what criteria is used by the models themselves. Because let's say, for instance, you get a series of earthquake off the west coast of Barbados. Let's say it happens somewhere in the Western Caribbean, and that tsunami can get here very quickly. Because like the little information I read about tsunamis that they travel very fast, almost as fast as a jet airplane in full freight. So when you're talking about the impact, these things come in with a lot of energy.
Yes, that's true.
So I just want to have that idea, if you know anything about what the model projections were.
Okay. So I'm trying to make sure if I understand what you're asking. You're asking what they use as the source, the technical. Well, that is a very technical question. Good news is that they're going to be here in the beginning of February at a community workshop. February 6th is currently the date of that workshop, and they're probably the best persons to answer that. What I can tell you is that they would have used earthquake sources that were within the region to do the modeling for these maps. And the sources that they would have used are actually quite close to Barbados. They used a course that's not too distant, so they didn't use earthquake sources that are all the way over in Jamaica and so on. They modeled based on a scenario of an earthquake that is fairly near to Barbados. Can I? Yeah.
What is the geological layout in the area you have chosen within the northern part that is different from the other?
Logical layout. Again, I
I
think
mean,
you may have to
these-
come to the community meeting. I can give you the simplest explanation I can give you is that there's a change in the depth offshore. I think those of you who do any fishing and so on, any fish people, I spoken to some people who are familiar with it, that offshore of Barbados, there's a point at which it just sort of drops and you get a bit of a trench of some sort. And yeah, actually it's not a continental shelf, I think it is around the reefs, somewhere offshore, and there's a dip, and the fishermen tell me they know it, yeah, there's a dip offshore, and that is one of the things that is affecting that gives you the result that we're seeing here. Not so much affecting, but it causes the result we see. Question?
My neighborhood is saying, for me, I don't know who is familiar with the box, and they want it in Indonesian. It's a 2004. Best case, worst case scenario is what I am interested in.
Exactly.
I don't know if this is modeled off our best case scenario or the worst case scenario. That's my interest, really. Because it is always
I certainly don't think it's best case. That one, I would not say it's a best case scenario. I don't know if it is a worst case scenario either. Again, that one may be a bit outside of my technical capacity to actually answer. That now is heading deeply into the science of the modeling.
Said, okay, another thing. You also said about movement routes. Now, I am a nurse, so every year I am part of the movement for the hurricane season. The concept of moving from point A to point B in Barbados, when anything happens, is non-existent. It takes me about 4 hours to get to QEH or from QEH in any kind of bad weather.
Okay.
4 hours.
Okay.
And this is every year.
Okay. Well, I think we have to think of it in the context of the hazard that we're looking at.
Panicky babies.
In the event, say that you don't have a very lengthy, a lot of time, a lot of prior warning, a lot of time to actually get up and move. You have a very short space. Suppose you only have one caravan scenario. I think we had 20 minutes in that scenario to get the evacuation done. In that kind of context, you don't spend a lot of time, like, we don't encourage people to use their vehicles or anything like that. We encourage you to move out very quickly on foot. And what we have seen in the caravan exercises, and for example, the other drills and so on that we have done, is that people can evacuate the area fairly quickly on foot. One year, I think, a couple years ago, drill with a school in Hotel St. James Primary. Those children got up the hill in about 4 minutes.
Heard what you said? Go on.
No, the teachers.
Young, healthy,
The teachers
and strong.
are probably-
No amputees.
The teachers move fairly quickly too, because they have to keep up.
No, I can't walk.
The teachers did move. The teachers had to keep up with the children, so they had to move with them fairly quickly. But I know we do hear people saying to us, asking us questions about the amount of time it takes and so on. That's one of the reasons for having so many different routes on these maps, and for the work that we're going to have to do to educate the people, so people are aware of what routes you can take to get out of the area. We try to select routes that are not too circuitous, routes that won't run you parallel to the coastline for too long. We're looking for the straightest route as possible up a hill and out of the area that might be impacted. Okay. And see next, Jen. Sir?
Yes, ma'am. In terms of safety, they have the jackets, just in case you want it.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds to me like along the lines of your own personal plans, because you should have a plan at the community level. Yes, we are doing plans at the national level and the community level here, but you should also have your own individual plans for all the different hazards you're likely to face. So some of you may already have your own family plans, but to make sure that you have within your plan, do your children know what they're supposed to do, if they where they're supposed to meet and so on in the event that there is a tsunami. So within your own personal planning, if you know, your own grab bag and your various, yeah, all the things you're going to have with you, you can make some plans too for the tsunami impact. Any other questions?
I can't see the map.
We have a bigger one that help with that.
So my question is the inundation expected to reach as far as up here?
We are at Gordon Greenwich School. None of the maps we have right now have inundation coming as far as Gordon Greenwich.
Arising out of that question, and you were saying, given the area under consideration, that it's most of it have a 2-meter wave. How far do you envisage that wave? How far inland do you envisage that wave will come?
Okay, I don't have the exact distances, but when we look at the maps, you would see where you see the boundary between the yellow and the green areas. The yellow area is where how far inland we think the wave may come. And it varies depending on where you are. In fact, it is very variable on these maps. It depends on where you are on the coastline. Some places it doesn't come very far. Yeah, but others it does come inland quite a bit. Okay, so thank you very much just for giving me your attention for a few minutes.